What does it mean to be engaged in today's workplace? How do we inspire, inform, and connect a working community? How do we build a culture of irreplaceability, trust, and listening to keep people on board and rowing together? Welcome to Post-COVID Leadership Advice. This series is all about building a workplace culture where people feel heard, supported, informed, and connected. This is a roadmap for leaders at any level, at any organization. Welcome to Post-COVID Leadership Advice. I'm your host, Fiona Passantino. I am a communication, engagement, and culture specialist, and I love helping leaders and teams level up and bring their best selves to work. Today, we are going to talk about the true cost of our disengagement. So whether by layoff or reorg or attrition, a lot of businesses are underestimating the true cost of losing talent. And this goes beyond the visible, obvious hard expenses like payouts and fees and recruitment and training, but there are a lot of these unseen costs as well. Dips in productivity, dips in customer service, a little morale issue, malaise, and depreciation of culture. But these actually do translate into bottom line costs. We still find ourselves in a bit of an engagement crisis at work. A lot of stress, a lot of burnout, people still leaving their jobs. Engagement numbers are still falling steadily by about 2 points a year. This trend is not slowing down. And active disengagement is still growing as well. We're now at about 18% active disengagement. And doesn't look like this is slowing down for now. So what's going on here? Nobody really likes being disengaged at work. Nobody comes to a job with the intention of not wanting to do it or not feeling good about it. But aside from these kind of icky feelings on all sides, employees and employers, that stressful work environments create, there's an actual cost. Gallup estimated that disengaged employees could cost as much as $550 billion in the U.S. alone. And where are all these costs coming from? Well, disengaged workers tend to quit. The annual quit rate is about 3%, and this is showing the same trend globally. If you combine this with a lot of layoffs going on, especially in the tech industry, this will really come to hurt us in the end of this year. It looks like at the end of 2023, because some of these are going to be lagging. So when you lay off employees, there's an effect on the job performance of the ones who are left behind. Something like 20% decline in job performance and a 41% decline in job satisfaction. Also a 36% decline in organizational commitment and a 31% increase in voluntary turnover. What does this mean? This means that when we lay off, we lose more people than we intend because the ones that we want to keep tend to leave right on their own. And this adds to the general cost of our disengagement. When we replace someone new, depending on the industry, the job role, the location, the level of expertise, it generally costs about 6 to 9 months of the person's salary just to fill that seat. There are the direct costs, which are recruitment. And this is a full cost, and it also is a cost in terms of personnel. So when you consider that filling the average mid-senior team lead seat is about 30 hours of a recruiter's time, then you have the hard payments of job ads on a variety of platforms, signing bonuses for the candidate, bonuses for the reference if you are doing that, or the middleman if this is internal, middlewoman. And if you have international relocations, those costs can definitely add up because these people are coming in from another country. They have to be settled. There are quite a lot of moving costs as well as those other soft costs that we don't always add up that come down to hours and hours of work helping people get settled. Those costs look like around $16,000 for the average mid-level manager. Then you have the onboarding And aside from the obvious orientation and training and materials, there's a lot of dead time before a new employee is up and running and productive. And if this new person doesn't ghost you on the day that the contracts are signed, which does happen, generally onboarding is about 60 hours worth of training, 120 hours of active onboarding, and 6 weeks of passive inculturation, which is sucking up the vibe of the place, the culture of the place, before you can really feel comfortable and add value to the role. Then, if you have separation costs, terminating an employee means payouts. It can mean severance, it can mean paying out accrued vacation time, unemployment insurance, or the European-style golden handshake. This depends on country requirements and policy, but it can be about 2 weeks of pay for each year of employment or even more. So those are the direct costs and the ones that we often see on a balance sheet. Now we're going to talk about the indirect costs, the ones that don't show up in the cost of a massive layout. They are swallowed up by overhead or unexplained or other costs that are not always kept on track the way you do for hard costs. And that is, for instance, lost productivity. This is a bit of a compounding calculation. Lost time while the vacancy is unfilled and the recruiters are at their work. Onboarding, training, this radiates outwards because you have loss of productivity on the entire team. If one seat is vacant, then everybody on the team suffers. The work tends to multiply because the leavers' tasks are heaped on to everyone else. Projects are delayed or shelved or canceled for about 6 to 8 months. And this also adds to burnout costs and overtime costs for the people who are left behind. These can be hard time and a half overtime costs, or the kind of general, I'm working too much, I'm exhausted, I need more time off, that kind of cost, which does not show up on a balance sheet. Then you have the even fuzzier costs, which is the decrease in morale. This is resulting in lower productivity as well and more quitting. You have the loss of knowledge. Whenever somebody leaves, even if they're not the best employee in the world, they still have a certain amount of institutional knowledge that they carry with them. And this needs to be filled. When they leave, the new person has to catch up on that or create their own knowledge. But the general loss to the company of that person's knowledge affects everybody else. Then you have the impact on the customer. The loss of an employee and the resulting workload on everybody else will result in a decrease in customer satisfaction because you simply have too few people doing too many things. Then, of course, you have the time spent by the manager. Onboarding is a lot of work. It's a commitment. It's about 20 hours in the beginning that a manager needs to spend onboarding the new person. You can't just send them off to some sort of training website and say, watch all these videos, talk to a bunch of people, and you'll be fine. Onboarding is a journey that does require quite a bit of time and commitment from the people who are joining. And there's no getting around this. If you just throw people into the deep end of the pool and let them figure it out on their own, they will be less productive until they have those hours added up. And if they have to figure it out on their own, it might cost the manager less time, but it will cost the new employee significantly more, probably about 25 to 30% more time if they have to figure things out on their own. Then you have the team calibration time. The team members have to deal with this new person. They will have a full dip in their productivity as they learn how to work with the person. Stop and show them the ropes. This is about 50% of a first, let's say, 3 weeks of time that the team is spent trying to massage the new person in. And if you have any kind of personality conflicts, well, this can be even more. Then you have the administrative costs, those wonderful HR and IT paperwork things that have to be done. Admin and startup, equipment readiness, tech support, learning how to use all of these systems, how to fill in your hours, how to log in your vacations,
all these kinds of things. Somebody has to train the new person, and this can take several months to do. And this will come out of the person's work time. He doesn't do this on his own time. Then the fuzziest cost of all, which doesn't show up anywhere, is the slow degradation of company culture. So at its core, what is a company? A company is a community of people working together towards a common goal. When somebody is sent away, this community is disrupted. It creates this general sense of loss and disconnection. When you have layoffs, which means a chunk of your community being shown the door, this really does have an enormous impact on the morale of the remaining staff, who may feel undervalued, unsafe. They may tend to do a little bit less of the risky work, the creative work that needs to be done, because a culture of fear is now starting to take hold. This will also affect how they interact with the customer, which is the most important person in the company because they provide everybody's salaries. And this feeds this quitting cycle. So this culture depreciation can last a full year after a massive layoff, and it can last several months after one individual person is shown the door. So let's talk about keeping people on board. If you have to cut costs, there might be other ways of doing it. You can actually reduce hours. You can reduce types of jobs that people can do. You can double down and retrain the people that need a little bit of extra work, because they don't necessarily have to be a disaster all the time. Pretty much everybody is good at something, and a large enough company should have a role to do for people who are not, let's say, super, super high performers, or at least they might not be high performers just yet. So keeping these employees on board will save an organization both the hard and the soft costs, the visible ones that show up on the bottom line on the spreadsheets and the ones that don't. So good luck out there. This is going to be an interesting year as we evaluate the true cost of our disengagement. Thanks for joining.
Thank you for being a part of this episode. Subscribe, follow, so you never have to miss another one. These ideas are based on the Comic Books for Executive series. Go to